Hi, my name is Bailey. I am a mental performance coach, and I work with athletes and teams of all ages and all sports, working with them on the mental side of their game and their sport and their performance. And today we're going to talk about overcoming mistakes and setbacks. So mistakes and setbacks are going to happen. We're not robots. We can't control everything. It's not if they will happen, but when the mistakes will happen. And when they do you have a plan? If we can train our responses, then we know what to do when we are in those situations and we don't have to figure it out as we go. And if we aren't ever making mistakes, then you probably aren't being challenged enough. And so we know mistakes will happen, and it's a good thing. They help us learn, they help us grow, but they're not the most comfortable thing in the world. And a lot of times when mistakes do happen, there are real consequences to them. So if we already have a plan of what we will do to respond when we make the mistakes, it's going to be a lot easier in those moments, and we're going to be able to bounce back from them a lot sooner. So first, let's talk about mistakes and setbacks themselves. So mistakes, when we think of that, we're going to think of I did something myself, my behavior led to something going wrong. Setbacks are going to be more environmental or situational, thinking like we don't have control over them, but this is something that we have to deal with, and it set us back a little bit. So mistakes tend to feel more personal, and setbacks are a little bit more out of our control. So when either of these happen, we want to have a reset routine. This is one of the skills that I teach my athletes to have. It's one of the first things that we work on because we know that mistakes will happen. So there are a few different parts of a reset routine. First, we're going to have the pause or the break, or we're waiting, we're holding. So first there's a pause. Then we're going to have a mental tool that we use, then a physical tool that we use, and then we're going to re-engage. Those are kind of the 4 steps of the reset routine. So the pausing first is important. This is what happens right after we make a mistake. Now this isn't necessarily going to be a long pause because a lot of sports, they're continuous. You don't have time to just stop and think about things. So immediately after we make a mistake, we're going to pause. We're going to take a deep breath. You might say the word pause or wait or hold because there is power in the pause. It's going to help us feel more in control and know that our response is a choice on what we do and not just a reaction. So the pause is really important there. After the pause, we're going to pick a mental tool to use. Now, this can be different things for different athletes. The mental tool meaning it's going to be more cognitive. We're going to really focus on the brain. So this could be self-talk. It could be having a reset word. It could be counting backwards from 100. Something for our brain to do to help us really stay in that moment and start this reset process. So a lot of my athletes just have like a keyword that they tell themselves. Sometimes it is just a word reset or next one or pause, anything like that that helps them kind of focus their brain and so we don't feel so out of control and reactive. For some of my athletes, their brains really like to work overtime, so I have them count backwards from 100 by 7. One, this is like a pretty emotionally neutral task, and it gives our brain a job to do so we can't spiral with the unhelpful or negative self-talk. And so maybe they only count down to 83 from 100, but it gives them enough time to kind of give their brain a job to do to reset. After the mental tool, we're going to do a physical tool. So this is something that we're going to do with our body to help us reset and get ready to move on to the next play or to the next attempt that we have in our sport. So this could be squeezing muscles. It could be shaking their hands out. Could be tapping their body, whether it's like tapping their chest, tapping the side of their leg, something that kind of cues our body that like we're in charge and we can do what we need to do. For me, when I was an athlete, mine was to fix my socks. I knew that every time like I made a mistake, the next break that I had, I would fix my socks and that would help me reset and focus on the next one. So it has to be something physical that we're doing to get some of that excess energy out and also tells our body that like it's time to move on to the next thing. So it could be anything, whatever feels the most helpful for the athlete, but it has to be intentional and it has to be physical. So far we've got our pause. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to pause before before we respond. We have our mental tool, something for our brain to do, then our physical tool, something for our body to do. And now that we've got our brain and our body ready to move on to the next play and we can let that mistake go, we're going to re-engage. So this might be a phrase, this might be just accepting and moving on. Some athletes say go again. As a coach, I say next one, or move forward, or move on. So those are our 4 steps. We're going to pause, we're going to have a mental tool, a physical tool, and then we're going to choose to re-engage. This helps us focus on what we can control and not get us stuck in that mistake spiral where we're making one mistake that turns into 2 mistakes and then 3 mistakes. So there's our 4-step reset routine that is going to help our body and our brain and get ready to re-engage and move on to the next one.